Welcome to Broncos Country Tonight, reacting to the Broncos win over the Carolina Panthers. We'll start on the offense. We'll get to some defense in a little while. And, of course, we'll round out with special teams and an outlook on the team overall. But let's first start with the Broncos, that performance by Drew Lock. You know, one of the things that I was struck by when I rewatched the game, Ben, it was just how confident Drew Lock played, how confident really the offense played, and considering they were down 3 starters on the offensive line, and I know Elijah Wilkinson's basically going to be the right tackle for the remainder of the year, but at least at that time, it felt like, hey, you got 3 different guys in there on the offensive line. You sort of would have understood if they struggled in pass pro, if they'd have struggled running the ball, maybe a little bit of struggling running the ball, but otherwise, I thought Drew Lock looked very confident. I thought they looked confident as a team.
Yeah, I think that's a function of this thing starting to come together. Anytime you got a young team like that, anytime you got a young offense like that, it takes a while for the timing to work out. And we've talked about that on this show over and over again. We tried to tell everybody, hey, look, it's going to be a work in progress. There's going to be some head-scratching moments. There's going to be some wow moments, but there's going to be a lot of head-scratching moments too. And we tried to warn you about that. And that's what this season has kind of been, is a chance for this young offense to start to come together, and we're starting to see that. You look at the Miami game, you skip New Orleans, but you look at the Kansas City game, you look at the Carolina game, and what do you see? You see a young offense starting to develop confidence in their abilities to read and react to each other and get these things and get the timing down and make plays and move the football. And once confidence is like a snowball rolling downhill. Once you get a little bit of it, then you get a little bit more of it from the next completion. It just keeps getting bigger, rolling downhill. And I love the direction that this team is headed in.
Yeah, and Drew completed a little over 77% of his passes. He seemed like he was sort of taking what the defense was giving him. He made good decisions with the ball. If it was third and medium, third and long, he's moving the pocket, he's rolling out. And overall, like I said, it just seemed like he wasn't just looking for the home run shots. He took some of those. They did have some deep completions. And look, Jerry Jeudy, Tim Patrick, KJ Hamler, obviously with 2 touchdowns. But in the end, I mean, this looked like a little bit of a different offense than we've been used to this season.
Well, they certainly are doing some concepts that are a lot more quarterback friendly. We're seeing more screens. We're seeing more short of the sticks throws. We're seeing stuff to just get the ball in the receiver's hands and let them create. We are seeing more of that rather than just the torrent of vertical shots that we saw in the first half of the season. So there is something to be said for Pat Shurmur adjusting things and saying, okay, look, we're not winning doing this. Let's find ways to win. Let's find what it is that works to win. And that's how you win football games. It's marrying up what a quarterback is able to do well with concepts and things out of your playbook and dialing them up in the right situation to maximize that. And credit to Drew Lock and the offense for getting it. Credit for Pat Shurmur to being flexible and changing the things that aren't working.
What did you think about the game that he called? I mean, it was pretty balanced. 30 rushing attempts, 27 pass attempts. You didn't run the ball super efficiently, but when you needed to pick up yards on the ground, Melvin Gordon averaged 5.2 per carry. You were able to do it. So what did you think about the overall game plan?
I thought it was pretty good. Drew Lock is 6-1 in his career when they've got more rushes than passing attempts. Balance is what's key to making him work. And a strong run game is the engine that kind of drives him, And so I think that going forward, the Broncos need to find ways to make sure they're committed to that run game and finding the opportunity to take their shots rather than just doing things for the sake of doing them. We've seen a lot fewer runs on second and long over the last couple of weeks. And I think that's a testament to Pat Shurmur saying, oh, okay, I've been figured out. It's time for me to change things up. It's time for me to call things that maximize what my guys can do.
Do you think that this performance by Drew Lock should change anything about the way people view him right now, view him as they head into 2021?
I don't think any single performance should ever change anybody's mind about anything. But I think if you look at the body of work and you look at the trajectory over a 3 or 4 game span, you can start to get an idea about somebody. And with Drew, I think that's what it is. I think you've seen a body of work that's shown flashes. And I think over the last 3 games, and again, I'm throwing out the New Orleans game because we didn't have a quarterback. You see a clear upward trajectory for a guy that's starting to come into his own. So I think that you can find anybody that'll say anything. You can find a hot take guy out there that's going to sit there and tell you that this guy, I've told you the whole time this guy wasn't good enough, and whatever. And after 15 starts or whatever, he may not be. It's like we always talk about. Sometimes you got to put that turkey in the oven and cook it slow and low a little while longer. Some meals come ready prepared. Some meals take a long time to cook.
Have you come off the idea that there needs to be competition next year? Because I certainly haven't. I appreciate this performance, and even if he does go 3+ touchdowns the rest of the way, I still feel like you'd like to bring somebody in to push on him just a little bit.
He could throw 3 touchdowns, 300 yards, and every game from here on out. I still think you need competition next year. I still think you need to push him a little bit. He needs to see what that's like, because at some point in his career, even if he all of a sudden he gets it and this is it and he goes forward and he's a superstar from here on out, at some point in his career he's going to have that competition. And so you need to introduce that to his psyche. You need to have him look over his shoulder just a little bit and know that somebody's pushing him. And they don't have that this year. I like Brett Rippon. I think Brett Rippon is a serviceable spot starter and backup type quarterback, but Brett Rippon is not pushing Drew Lock to be starting anytime soon.
Yeah, and that's an interesting conversation too, because Brett Rippon and Drew Lock really work well together. Drew Lock even referenced him in his post-game comments, talking a little bit about how Brett Rippon was one of the guys that suggested to him that maybe he should take the underneath stuff, take what's given to him. And it really resonated with him. It's not like we haven't in the media said that. It's probably not even other media members that have necessarily haven't said things like that. But it really resonated with him in that moment. Brett Rippon sort of pointing out, look, what if you did it like this? And so maybe there is something there to still keeping Brett Rippon on this roster, because they obviously have a connection.
Yeah, I think so. I think Brett Rippon is one of those guys that is kind of a coach on the sidelines a little bit, and can see things. Brett Rippon is a very cerebral, very smart quarterback. What Brett lacks is the elite tools to be able to succeed in the NFL, and that's sort of the issue. It's not that that Brett doesn't have the ability to play. It's just that his tools are kind of middling, and it leads to some limitations. So, but he's a smart guy. It's how he survived the Mountain West. It's how he got out here to Denver in the first place and won a football game against the Jets in his lone starts. So, I'd love to see Brett stick around. I think Jeff Driscoll and Blake Bortles are just guys. You can let those guys go and find somebody who's got some starts under their belt, bring them in, and have them compete with Drew.